Oh, we're live now?
I believe so. Let's see. Yep, it looks like we are live, so everyone should be able to see us now. I'm just going to send out a message. We can wait a few minutes for everyone to pile in.
Hello,
Nice.
everybody.
Hi, everyone. Justin, are we recording it?
We are recording it, so this will be available later.
Nice.
All right, I'll give people a few minutes to trickle in. First of all, for everyone that's already here, thank you all so much for joining. We want to use this time just in case anyone has questions about, really any questions in DeFi, we're happy to take. We did want to spend a little time introducing the project we're working on. To get started, perhaps both of you could just briefly go through your backgrounds, and then I'd love to hear, Mike, how you came up with the concept for Brink and decided that this was the project you wanted to build.
Sure, yeah. So I started getting interested in crypto probably like 2013, 2014. I was working just as a developer at a startup in the Boston area, but just kind of like going to different crypto events. I met some people who were very into crypto. We started a meetup together, and we ended up founding a company called Level K. And we did like basically smart contract dev consulting and security auditing. Focused on Ethereum. Started going to various like Ethereum events around the world, like DevCon and ETH Global events, and just got like completely sucked into the space. Like loved it, loved the people, loved the technology. So yeah, that was, I think we founded that company about 4 years ago. So I've been full-time in Ethereum and crypto ever since. Started Brink back in the spring, like not long before Justin, you and I met and started working on it together. And how did I come up with the idea? I came up with the idea actually from working on some like prediction market stuff with Aragon and Gnosis platforms. Mostly like I saw this problem of like kind of having to pay gas for every action. And I came up with this pattern, which, well, I didn't come up with it. I mean, there were other people working on meta transaction and smart contract wallet based approaches for like basically doing like offline transactions that could be executed later. So that was already something that people were discussing in the space in the crypto industry. And I wanted to use that concept and apply it directly to DeFi. So that's kind of how Brink came about. And we're doing that with Brink, basically with limit orders, stop loss orders, and other asset automation transactions. So conditional orders, automated orders, all of these things, turns out it applies itself really well to DeFi. And yeah, that's where we are today, building that. So I'll turn it over to Kyle. Kyle, you can give an intro too.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you everyone for joining in on this chat. This is super exciting. My first live stream, so.
I think for all of us probably. Well, I don't know about Mike, but
no, first. Well. Yeah, first. Well, I've done a few live streams, but this is the first one for this team. Yeah.
So it's super exciting to talk about, one of my many passions, but probably the foremost one, which is, DeFi and cryptocurrency. I actually, around the same time as Mike, I became interested in cryptocurrency in 2013. I may have bought some things in 2011 with Bitcoin, but my memory's hazy from those days. Yeah, in 2013, I was still in college, but there was a big price spike. It got me interested, read about the technological implications of Bitcoin, got super interested in it. I was studying software engineering at the time. So post college, which is like around 2015, I was working for Amazon, and I heard about Ethereum, and I was just like, wow, this is like really next level, like going from a regular phone to a smartphone, basically, in my eyes. So I basically on my off time, I started researching Ethereum. I actually had my own miner in 2016. I made a little, I had a walk-in closet where I had my miner, so it was like kind of like a little sun in my house. And from there, I worked at Amazon, I worked at Hitachi, but then I was learning like React and smart contract development with Solidity. So I actually went to a hackathon with Mike back in 2018 in Buenos Aires. We created a fun project called Crypto Against Humanity. It actually did win an award at the hackathon. So that was really what, like, I was like, I really want to get into this space from there. I joined a startup that had a crypto project on it. Didn't work out. Went back into the startup game at Rigora up until very recently. Mike reached out to me in March about this project, and first I was like, I'm really happy at my current company. You know, I'm doing well. I got to make a lot of infrastructure. I got to build out a lot of infrastructure for the company, so I was having a good time. But then when I actually got to talking with Mike about the idea, I was like, wow, this is, to me, I believe it's a pretty revolutionary project that will be one of the foundational blocks of DeFi going forward once we release.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thank you guys both for that introduction. Mike, you touched on it a bit of just like what we're building at Brink. Of course, everyone can check out our URL, which is just brink.trade if you're interested. I've linked that below. But Mike, would you be able to just elaborate more on like what our vision is for what type of different products and features we'll be shipping? Perhaps like if you could talk more about what features we're bringing to Uniswap v3, that'd be great as well.
Sure, yeah. So kind of like if you look at the marketing site, the super high level is like we're building conditional orders. And if we start like breaking that down, like what does that actually mean? We're basically building a system where you can create an order or create any type of parameters, like anything that you want to be executed for asset value that you hold. And you can do that gas-free. So that's an offline message. It doesn't cost you anything to create that order. And that order basically becomes public, and a network of bots can come in and execute that order for you at a later date. And at that point, you will get charged a fee, but you will only get charged a fee if the order becomes executable. So if we're thinking of it in like the context of limit orders, that means if the price hits your limit price that you specified, then it will execute. And you will be charged a fee at that point, but it didn't cost you anything to create the order. And this is obviously has huge implications for DeFi. Gas costs are super high. Like being able to, like we're not reducing the cost of execution on chain, but we are allowing users to create orders without having to pay gas. So you can specify the parameters of what you want to happen with your assets. You don't pay a cost for that. And you more or less defer that cost to a future execution time if your parameters are met. So in the limit order case, it's only if the price gets hit. Stop loss order case, the same thing. It's only if the price decreases below your stop loss threshold, then you will pay the fee for execution. And another interesting thing that we're doing that can't really be done right now with DeFi assets is we're supporting these order types and more for all asset types on Ethereum. So what does that mean? Not just ERC20. So right now you could do like a limit order on ERC20 through like Matcha, for example. That's a commonly used platform. But you have to hold, in order for that limit order to be valid, you have to hold your asset in that ERC20. So if that's like a DAI transaction, you have to hold the DAI. If it's MKR transaction, you'll have to hold the MKR. So what we are supporting is the same order type, so limit order, but for that asset in any form. So you could have that asset staked in an LP position, for example. If you do yield farming and you're staked on a yield farming contract, you can still open up a limit order on the asset that is wrapped in that kind of like farm staking pool, wherever you have that. So you don't have to hold the asset in the ERC20 form, which obviously like has huge implications for today, because most of the asset value is staked in one way or another. So we're looking at this like specifically at Uniswap V3 LP positions and also Uniswap V2 LP positions, which we've already built a lot around that. But those are like basically it's like a wrapped asset type with two underlying assets that fluctuate in value relative to each other. Brink will allow you to create a take profit or stop loss order on the total value of that asset relative to really any other asset. So yeah, that's and I could get into more of the technical details of how we do that if anyone's interested. But yeah, maybe
one thing I do want to add is that it's a trustless system as well. We're not actually like holding any of your assets or these aren't like going into like so it's you still have all the same security guarantees of Ethereum, and if you have a limit order that says I want this for X price, you're going to get it at that price, and there's no way you can get it for less.
Correct. Yeah, and I'll just add to that as well that not only is it non-custodial, but it's also decentralized. Like we're not Brink, the company doesn't have to execute the transaction for you. Like the permission for executing that is open so that any other actors can come in and execute the transactions. So we also non-custodially. So you're basically like the users are defining the terms of what they want to happen with their assets, and under those terms, the assets can be manipulated, but they can't be taken. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, you can see if anyone has questions, just feel free to interrupt us. I'll highlight the question as you can see here, and so we can touch on a topic a little more if people are interested in that. But it looks like Rojas is asking just a bit more about the technicals and wondering how the execution actually happens. So perhaps we could introduce the executor network we're building.
Sure. Yeah. So Rojas, it's a smart contract-based account and metatransaction system. So as a user of the system, you will basically get a generated address, and you own that address exclusively through like your signer key, and that could be through like a MetaMask account. So that's your signer key. You get this generated Brink address. You can transfer funds into that address and then sign orders with your signer key, like on MetaMask, that basically allow like movement of your assets from that address, but only under certain conditions. So you sign an order that says, for example, I'll allow 1 ETH to leave my Brink account in exchange for 5,000 DAI. So that would be a limit order. Like we're not at 5,000 yet, but we might be. So you sign that as an off-chain order. You don't pay gas for it. And then I could take that order, or anyone out there who has the order can execute it, but they can only execute it under those terms. So like you can take the ETH out, but you have to return the 5,000 DAI. And that's a simple example of a conditional order. And basically we can, using that pattern, like the smart contract account pattern with the off-chain sign message, you can do like almost any type of transaction with that involves assets in the account. So I'll ask me another question. Will there be gas to transfer funds to the signer account though? Yes, yeah, you have to pay gas to transfer funds into the signer account. You could also, this is interesting, so you could theoretically transfer into the account from like a centralized exchange. If you have, let's say, DAI on a centralized exchange like Binance, you could initiate a transfer directly to that smart contract account address. And in that case, I guess you wouldn't pay gas. Somebody would pay the gas. Binance would pay the gas. But yeah, if you do have to put the funds into the account in order to use this. But the cost of gas to do a transfer is like obviously much lighter than a lot of the processing that happens behind like the Brink executor network. Something like, as simple as doing a swap on Uniswap is a lot more gas intensive than just doing like a simple transfer of funds. So it ends up being like not necessarily less gas cost, but deferred gas cost. Only if the conditions you're specifying are met. And then most of the time, those conditions will have some other profit opportunity for you, so it will outweigh the cost of execution in that case.
And there is a big savings to people who, like, let's say will create like 10 to 20 limit orders. Like if the cost of creating those limit orders is just the transfer into the signer address, that's already saving you a ton of money versus, you know, some of the other things where you have to pay the gas cost up front for these limit orders. Because you're not going to be paying any of the gas on limit orders that aren't hit. You're already saving money there.
Great. Yeah, I think another question we get all the time is like, how does this differ from 0x? Perhaps Mike, you could like dive into just the technicals a bit, but then maybe explain why we think like what we're building is, you know, just a better version of 0x.
Yeah, it's similar to like 0x relays. 0x relays are like basically ERC20 approval based, so you have to hold the asset in ERC20 like in the raw form. They won't work for anything that's more complex than that. So it turns out they're really good at doing limit orders, but they can't do things that are more complex like a stop loss order. Stop loss order requires basically like a price oracle check, and just something as simple as that can't really be done with like the way 0x has built like approval-based relays. So that's I think the big difference is that we can support any asset type with the meta transaction and smart contract account pattern.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people probably in the innovation community and just in general are looking for a way to like better manage their Uniswap v3 liquidity. Can you talk a bit about like where we are in development, what features we'll be launching with, and then when we're thinking that we could have a beta version shipped?
Yeah. So we're working on a few things there. First one is we're building some like auto exiting range orders. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with range orders, but it's like basically a way to do limit orders by purchasing an LP position on a Uniswap v3 market. So you can do a limit order like as an LP. Basically, you purchase a one-sided LP position, and then when that LP position's like concentrated price ranges cross, then it flips to the other side of the market, leaving you with the other assets. So it acts as a limit order. The problem is it doesn't have any way to like automatically exit you, so you stay in the position and it can flip back. So we're building auto exit for that and some other optimizations. We're building that into the Brink UI, and we're tentatively planning to release that like end of June. So along with the initial Brink launch. So we're working toward that now. Also potentially working on some, but I think the most exciting thing is stop loss on the actual LP value. I think that's something that we really want to focus on and get out there. So yeah, those three things, I guess. Range orders, so that's limit orders on V3, auto rebalancing, and then stop loss and take profit on the LP assets for V3.
Yeah, and just to clarify, since I think it's just such a new concept people aren't familiar with, if you have a Uniswap V3 or V2 liquidity position with our platform, if the entire position's value dropped below a certain amount or started to decline, you could set a conditional order that would basically be a stop loss for that position. And that's just one example. With our network, you could really build any type of order. At the start, like we're thinking of introducing a stop loss feature, but of course, like that could be expanded to really any type of condition that you wanted or that other executors built.
Yeah, and that's so you don't get wrecked when you stake that LP.
Especially, yeah. So I don't know if there's anything we can publicly say, but like what type of incentives are we thinking about for early users, if that's something we can touch on now?
We're not sure yet. I mean, we probably will have a token at some point. We're going to incentivize early adopters in some way, but still talking about that. But yeah, definitely become an early adopter if you can. And yeah, there will be benefits to that. And we'll be working closely with anyone who's using it in the early stages.
Yeah, I can say, I mean, if you're in the innovation community or just like interface with us before, we're like, we really want to support everyone that supported us through this journey. So we want to figure out the way that makes sense to do that. And it's not something we'll overlook. I see a question here. Perhaps one of you could answer. Is this just for Uniswap? Like, how is that going to work?
Yeah, so we've built it in a way that it's totally agnostic to the liquidity source. So we're integrated with Uniswap right now with V2. We're building like the range orders for V3, but the way that limit orders and stop loss orders are constructed, like anyone can add a new liquidity source there. It's not tightly tied to any AMM. So we're definitely like looking at expanding and adding new liquidity sources. There's pretty deep liquidity on V2 and V3 right now, though. But we do have the ability to expand to more.
And then I see another question of if someone's interested in becoming an executor, can we touch on that? What is that process like? Can anyone be an executor, etc.?
Sure, yeah. So it's definitely a technical role. Like you'll be like essentially building a bot for it. We may launch the initial protocol with like a kind of whitelisted set of executors and then open that up over time. But like the process for kind of being an executor is probably just talk to us and we make sure you're a real person and we talk about dev and like what you're going to execute, and then we can help you get started, because our intention is like for that to be completely like open source and community driven role, and we just have to like work to get there. I think if we open up execution on day one, like publicly, it's somewhat of a security risk, so we're being a little bit careful about that. And we'll also potentially have like a lot of collisions with executors trying to execute the same orders, so we have to kind of figure out how that works. But yeah, definitely talk to us about it if you're a dev and want to build something for it.
We're planning on doing is at some point releasing some open source executor code, so that you can something very simple that you can build up on top of. It's not going to be like a fully featured executor for the open source one, but it will be available to work on.
Yeah, yes. And I should add, if this is something you're interested in, we're all like very easy to reach. Our Discord is a great way to reach us. We have an official Brink Discord channel that is linked below. You could also come in the Telegram. I'm pretty much always there, and you can always send me a message there and I'll respond as soon as I can, and we'll help you get set up. So I mean, we want to build out this executor network, and we're happy to help. I see another question here. Is this blockchain agnostic?
I'd say the pattern is blockchain agnostic, but we're pretty focused on ETH right now. It's built on ETH. The smart contracts are on ETH, but we could potentially deploy on any like EVM compatible chain.
Do we have any plans for layer 2, or have we thought about that yet?
Yeah, for sure. We're watching to see like where liquidity moves. If liquidity moves onto, let's say, Optimism, which I believe it will, then we can deploy this on Optimism, and it still has value on layer 2. Like even if layer 2 rolls out and gas cost is super cheap there and liquidity is moving over there, like the need for automation there, I think, is still really important. So there will still be gas cost on layer 2. It might be really low, but you still have to pay gas, and you still have to manually monitor your assets and make transactions manually. So having a system where you can kind of like set it and forget it is really valuable, whether you're on layer 1 or layer 2. So yeah, there's value to this on layer 2 as well, and we're watching it closely to see.
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about, or either of you talk about the long-term vision for Brink of really becoming an infrastructure layer and what that means?
Sure. Yeah. So it's kind of like an easy way to integrate with on-chain liquidity. So if you're looking at it from like a technical perspective, let's say I want to build some system where I'm like monitoring all these assets and making certain decisions on where to move those assets. To do that today, you'd have to write a bot that knows about gas prices, that knows how to construct Ethereum transactions, that watches the on-chain state closely for like everything that you're looking at, whether it's LP positions or different like AMM markets. And that's really hard to do. And a lot of like both like independent users and institutional users are doing this today. But our future vision is that you will never have to interact directly with the on-chain state. You could basically just say to this Brink network, I want to do this. You kind of package that up into a message that just says what you want to happen and under what conditions you want that to happen. Put that out to the network, and then you wait, and then it happens. The network takes care of it. So like the overhead for integration with on-chain liquidity is way, way, way lower with kind of an execution network like this.
Awesome. And then how will EIP 1559 change our thoughts about these transactions, if at all?
Kyle, you know about 1559? You probably know more about that than me.
I don't think it'll change our vision at all. I don't think it has any impact on our like the feasibility or the value of our product. Honestly, I do think EIP 1559 is great for the community as a whole. Maybe not for miners, but it's been since the beginning of Ethereum. It's been written that they're going to be they were always going to be phased out. So really, it's just like a benefit to the whole Ethereum community to have EIP 1559. So that we're able to there's actual benefit every time a transaction happens. Because right now, technically, there's really no benefit for a mass volume of transactions to go through on the network. Really, it's just Ethereum being reshuffled to miners, who pretty much almost all miners immediately sell Ethereum as soon as they mine it for US dollars or some other base currency. So yeah, I think it's a hugely great thing for the Ethereum community. I don't think it has a big impact on our product other than maybe more users. Yep.
Awesome. Let's see, yeah, we just had one nice comment here. Yeah, I mean, so this kind of the idea actually for this, so we just a little background. I joined the team a little over a year ago. And we kind of like started conducting this survey. This was just when DeFi was starting, right before DeFi summer. And like we ended up like we were looking at this like what are the features in centralized finance that we could bring to DeFi. Basically like what's missing, like what do we actually want to build? And one of the things we realized is like there's really no way to protect or automate your positions. If you're exposed to like somewhat of a risky asset or a risky liquidity pair, you kind of have to be at your computer monitoring that position you're like all day or 24/7 unless you actually build something to do that. So that's just a little background on how we thought of that. And it's something we're excited about. We're going to be users of this ourselves. And we think there's also a lot of value for the community. So I think going forward, we're happy to take any questions if you have questions about Brink. I did write down a few fun questions just to ask Mike and Kyle, and perhaps I can chime in as well, just to kind of lighten the mood. I'm curious, could both of you share a story of like a rug, an exploit? Did you get wrecked ever? Like, what's the worst mistake you've made in DeFi? Because we've all done it.
Kyle, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I guess the biggest mistake I've made, and I've actually been pretty good. I've been pretty good about this stuff, so not too many big ones. But the biggest mistake I made was I downloaded Coinbase Wallet, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like now I can interact with 3 on my phone. So I put like a couple $1,000s on there worth of crypto assets. And I didn't write down the token. I was on vacation, so like the secret key. I was like, oh, once I get back from vacation, I'll write it down somewhere. I'll put it in a safe, right? Well, anyway, I was on vacation, and my Face ID stopped working on my phone, and I had set up Coinbase to work with Face ID, Coinbase Wallet. So not the Coinbase app, just Coinbase Wallet. And it wasn't working, so I reset it. Well, resetting my Face ID locked me out of that account, and I didn't have the private key. So there's $2,000 then, probably $30,000 now.
Oh man,
Yeah.
There's no way to get into it.
No, because I contacted Coinbase Wallet. I was like, it must be stored locally somewhere or something.
Oh man,
but they were very unhelpful as well. It took me months to get an answer from them. I was like, your thing told me to set up this two-factor authentication, and I did, or this face authentication, I did, but I didn't realize resetting it would completely lock me out of it. So that's my one big fuck up. The one thing I didn't fuck up was I never joined the DAO, even though I was tempted originally in 2016. Nice. So I got away with that one. Still, I think I sold all my Ethereum Classic recently, but had a pretty good pile of it.
Which is interesting. I think, sorry to cut you off, Mike, I'll let you go in a second, but it's going to be very interesting. Like when ETH merges and we go to switch to ETH2, we're all going to have like this new ETH Classic 2 or whatever the miners decide to call it. And it's like, it's just going to be free value. We can all dump those like Classic 2 Ethereum tokens, which is going to be interesting. So just another reason why I'm bullish on the price of ETH. But Mike, you were going to go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of the price of ETH, my story has to do with the price of ETH. I think the time frame was like maybe like early 2018, like right before the first like big crash into the crypto winter. Everybody was like going nuts over the ETH price. It was going like, I think it was about 700 or 800, and I found out that I was looking at the Maker platform and CDPs, and you can use them to margin trade. You can use them to like basically go leverage long on ETH. So I was like, that's super cool. I can do that all through a smart contract. Oh, and also I'm like so bullish on the price of ETH. I'm just going to go like super, super long on this. So I took like a good portion of ETH that I had, and I went like ultra leverage, like as much as you can go. I think it was like, you can get it up to like 2.8x leverage or something. I just leveraged it all, and it kept going up and up and up. I was like, hell yeah. I think it all-time high at like 1,400, and then it crashed and I got liquidated. My position got liquidated, and then I think it just kept crashing because I was like, oh, it's not crashing, and it just kept going. I just wrote it down, and it turned out to be pretty bad. If you're leveraged up, then you're also leveraged down. I learned.
Yeah, we might be getting to some type of inflection point. I mean, the price action on ETH is it's just nuts. So we'll see what happens. I'm confident with 1559 coming out and ETH2 that we have a catalyst to keep the momentum going. But there's so much hype. I mean, I've talked a lot about this in the innovation chat, but there's that 95-page paper that I've kind of circulated around that someone posted, basically saying that ETH could hit a max price of 150,000 in the next 2 years, which is insane, of course. I mean, we'll see, but
is that the one where I saw like Martin Kopelman retweeted it, and he was like, that would make the ETH market cap higher than the GDP of the United States?
Yeah, it's some crazy, it's nuts. So we'll see. Someone says they missed the start of the stream, but they're watching it 3x to catch up. I'll respond in the comments, but you don't have to do that. We're going to record it. This is being recorded, and we're going to post it, so no need to do that. Curious, I would love to have your thoughts. What do you guys think of BSC and like these other chains that we're seeing popping up? I mean, do you think that this market, we're going to be in a single chain world in a few years, or do you think there's a space for BSC, there's a space for Ethereum, and that there can be a fragmentation of chains?
Kai, you want to go? You want to answer?
Yeah, BSC. Wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I definitely think there's some value to these centralized chains. But they're just not they're not decentralized. They're not decentralized, and 95% of the value, I would say, of blockchain is you're getting a decentralized network. So really, they're offering nothing new other than the fact that they can interact with real blockchains. So yeah, I would say that they're. I think they'll have a place for them, but I think the decentralized, and I believe Ethereum, obviously, but I believe obviously a different one could come along. But I think these decentralized networks that give you access to these decentralized applications that can't be censored, that's where the real value is, especially in the world today. There's so much crazy things going on with governments trying to censor people, or take away monetary tools from people. I think it's that's going to people just naturally fall towards where they can actually do the things they need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think BSC obviously is a centralized chain that we're seeing huge value coming into Ethereum and DeFi, and there's a reason for that. There's benefits of decentralization that you're not going to get at BSC. I don't know if they've done any accounts shutdowns or seizures, but that was a huge motivator for a lot of people to come into DeFi. Is there cannot be an account seizure. That's kind of a fundamental property of cryptocurrency and our whole industry. So operating on a chain that could potentially be where your assets could potentially be taken is just it's kind of counter. It just goes against everything in the industry. So I'm not a big fan. I think people are doing their thing over there. They're getting value out of it if they're getting value out of it. There's still plenty of activity on BSC and other centralized exchanges. But yeah, I don't necessarily think we're going to see a single chain world though. There are some other cool projects. I talked to the Near Protocol team a lot, and I really like what Near Protocol's doing. Yeah, all the layer 2s are really cool. They kind of operate as separate chains in a way. Yeah, so a lot of interesting projects out there outside of Ethereum, but we're Kyle and I are pretty focused on Ethereum, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And there's some things that Ethereum's not even trying to do anymore. At one point, Ethereum was trying to be a file storage network as well with Swarm, but really they've given up the reins on that. I think I could be wrong, but yeah. So there's other chains that are just for file storage nowadays, and that's not something Ethereum's focused on, I don't believe.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think it's kind of been, I don't want to say nice in a way, but it's been interesting to have all this pump and dump and pure yield farming activity moving to BSC, because that Ethereum gas is nuts right now. And just imagine what it would be if all of that activity was on Ethereum. It would be crazy. Regarding centralization, I don't know how much the average end user cares, but I think if we're looking at this from a nation state level of which nation states would end up supporting a blockchain, I think for that use case, it just has to be decentralized, because if you have a blockchain that comes out of China, the US is probably going to be antagonistic to that, et cetera. So I think if something is going to be this global financial system, it just has to be decentralized. And I think the three of us are all in agreement that right now that just has to be Ethereum. There's nothing yet that's going to take its place. We'll see. But yeah, on that note, I did want to ask you too, I'm not going to hold anyone to it. We can bury this video if we're totally wrong, but what's everyone's 5-year and 10-year ETH price target? I'm just curious if you guys have thought about that. I can start first. So for 5 years, I'll say 20,000, and for 10 years, I'll say 40,000 for me.
Oh, all right. So this is a loaded question.
I might skip out on this one, but you guys can
yeah, it's hard to tell, because I personally believe we're going to go through some type of hyperinflation soon of the dollar. So I mean, I can see Ethereum being millions of dollars in 5 years, but that doesn't mean that it'll be worth any more than it is today. I do believe Ethereum will be worth more than it is today, but in terms of price, it's just so hard for me. In terms of purchasing value, I think Ethereum would probably like 10x
Right.
in 10 years. In terms of purchasing value, I think Ethereum will probably 1000x in 10 years. That's just random numbers I'm throwing out there, but yep.
You heard it here first, everybody. Do either of you have any resources you want to share for people that are like looking to learn Solidity or just to become developers in this space? It's a question that comes up often in the innovation chat, and just I'm curious how you both got started, and if there's anything you'd recommend, any online classes, videos, etc.
Kyle, do you know of any?
Oh yeah. When I first entered the space, so it's been a while since I took the introductory classes and everything. Well, number one, before you dive into that stuff, I would say like try to have a really good grasp of what's going on in the space. Like read Ethereum blogs. Bankless is really good. I don't know if you've heard of Bankless. Bankless.substack. Yeah. That one's great. There's This Week in Ethereum. I don't know if that's still happening. I used to read it every week.
He's still doing it.
Yeah, awesome. And then once you have a good grasp of like what Ethereum's trying to do and like where it's at, then you go into the coding. There's a course on Udemy for like smart contract development. It'll also teach you like React, so like front end development. Then the other stuff, other than like the React front end and the smart contract stuff, everything else is just traditional software engineering when you're building out a DeFi project. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all so much. I want to kind of keep this first live stream a bit shorter. It's something we're thinking of doing if it gains traction, especially after we post the recording. I wanted to thank both Mike and Kyle for joining, and then, of course, all of you for listening. All of our resources to learn more about Brink and get in touch with us if you're interested in becoming an executor and being one of the first executors, all of that is below. So that should be a great jumping off point. I'm also going to be pretty active at responding to comments as well. So we're pretty reachable. But thank you all so much for watching. Unless you have any closing thoughts, Mike and Kyle, I think that does it.
No, yeah. Thanks, Justin, for putting this together.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for
driving the conversation here.
And thank you for everyone who's commenting and viewing. Rojas, I believe it's pronounced Rojas. Thank you for all your.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm laughing at a few of them.
Nice. So, yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. We'll probably continue this conversation in the innovation chat, which is, of course, linked below. Until next time, thank you all so much for watching.